You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern time for your second dose, your second helping of your bi-weekly options extravaganza known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE, OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are busy mainlining these days. Hope you're having a good trading and indeed a great content week. Lots of great stuff coming out for you throughout the week, including very soon some of that OIC stuff starting to hit. Look for it any moment now. Could be hitting as we speak, as you're listening to this. Could be hitting the network. So stay tuned. Some of that is already unfolded, already hitting the pro side. So they're already getting it early. But it will be unwinding to the rest of the network post haste. So stay tuned for all that goodness. Of course, if you want to see it early, you want to get in on the live, you want to get in on, let's say, Options Oddities tomorrow, awesome pro Q&As. I got our good buddy Scott Nations lining up to come back in the hot seat next week. You can't keep that guy out of it. All sorts of other fun people. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. Kick the tires and light the fires, as they say, as we go around the horn and see who's joining us today. First, let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East, where we are joined once again by the flowingest of masters, a.k.a. Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe. Hopefully, sir, have you recovered from your sojourn to Asheville last week, sir?
I have. It was a great event, and I took the OIC Express jet back from Asheville. It was full of people from the conference coming back to New York City. And I've dug my way out of all the emails I missed, and it's a beautiful, beautiful spring week in New York. So things are good.
You had the one shot from Asheville. I was the idiot who drove 2 hours back and forth to Charlotte. That was
oh, that's right. How'd that go?
That was a poor choice in retrospect. But not a lot of great flights from Chicago there. So c'est la vie. We do what we do at the end of it, just to bring the content for you folks, listeners. And then also joining us as we dial the needle up from Cboe East, up the coastline to the dark, stormy, tempestuous shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, how go things on the dark and stormy shores?
I have to say it's dark and stormy today. It is dark and stormy, and I'm finally got the part to my heater. So right when summer comes, I believe.
Perfect.
Woo!
Perfect. Right for the temperature to hit 100 degrees, you're good with a heater. So good to see that
I don't think it gets quite to 100, but it will be pleasantly 70 by the time we turn it on, just for fun.
Pretty warm down there in Asheville last week. Got into the 90s, so it was pretty warm down there. So I guess if you want to...
I hear that's a very nice place.
I didn't see much of it. I saw a room with people like Henry in it for 3 days. I saw a lot of good people in that room, but the room looked like many other rooms I've been in over the years. But yeah, I hear good things about Asheville from the limited time I did get to tour the town. Hopefully next time you do the Biltmore. It's kind of the thing you do when you're in Asheville, but apparently not this trip. And then also joining us with a guy who never leaves the comforts of St. Charles, because why would he? He is none other than Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to you as well, sir.
Always a pleasure to be here, and I've driven through North Carolina before. I don't know if I've ever gone Charlotte to Asheville, but if I remember, North Carolina is really pretty.
It is nice, and let's see if these markets are nice, listeners. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there. And interesting week, an interesting day. It's kind of been a struggle. I know on the last show, everyone said they were watching that 5,200 level. We had challenges getting there, got close, retreated again, got close, retreated again. Today seemed like it was starting out on that little bit of a retreat pattern. We actually started off the day down or unched in most of the major indices. And now as we're kicking off the show proper, we have reached and indeed exceeded that 5,200 level. S&P up nearly 20 handles, about 1/3%. Dow up about 0.5%, and NASDAQ up about 1/3%. And because we always forget this time of show to check in on our friends small caps. Small caps up about 0.6% out there. So a pretty, starting to be a pretty banger day. We'll see if this can continue out there, if the worm will turn yet again. All this a long way around to saying our vol friends a wee bit lighter than they were this time on Monday. VIX still north of the 13 handle, right about a 13.15 or so when we kicked off the show. That puts it down about 0.6 of a point. VVIX at about a 75, actually up a point. It was down about a 74 on the Monday show, but that is a point a lot of people are making now. I know your colleague there, Henry Manijou, putting out her vol digest, noting that as well. VVIX hitting that 12-month low out there. And it's a point where, you might want to start paying attention to VVIX. We've said it before. And indeed, if past is prologue, it's something to watch again. Even though it does seem like folks, right now at least, we're only a week and change into May. I'm not going to repeat the cliche, but it seems like folks are not at all reticent about letting some vol go in this environment, which is kind of interesting. Let's go around the horn the way we started. Let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East first. Mr. Flowmaster, what's catching your eye out there? And what do you think about your colleague Mandy also hitting on VVIX getting at some low territory, sir?
Well, yeah, we looked, we saw that little spike at the beginning of, I think, the middle of April, right? We had a sell-off and vol spiked, but it was short-lived for sure. And we've kind of come right back into, what feels like a kind of complacency type of world. I mean, like I said, it's warm. It feels like spring. Maybe people are gearing up for the summer. But it's been quiet. I mean, we haven't had. I think we had a 50 million contract day on last Friday, and then this week has all been closer to 40 million contracts a day. So that's below average. We still have earnings coming out. That's moving us around. There's dividends hitting. So I actually saw 1 million contracts trade and some deep in the money calls ahead of dividends. So that's actually kind of, I don't even know if I count that volume. But I mean, really, VIX is back down to 13. I mean, I think it might be a number tomorrow, but there's just not a lot of big news on the tape. Obviously the the global conflict issues are still pretty significant, but doesn't seem to like there's a lot of attention on that right now.
No, it does not. It's quiet when we're counting div play numbers. let's add up some div plays out there. Then things are perhaps settling down. It is perhaps the beginning of that season, listeners. If past is prologue last few years, probably not. Usually get a couple of surprises here and there that seem to juice up volatility, juice up action in the market. So let's hope for a few of those. Nothing horribly negative, of course, but enough to maybe gin up a little action out here. Let's keep going around the horn. Let's go up to the dark and stormy shores of Maine. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, we were talking about it on Monday, 5,200 level. Took a little while to get there, but we are finally there, sir. What are your thoughts?
Well, we are at 5,200. And you got a day here, though. We got a little VIX up, SPX up today. Kind of normal curve. So I feel like we're in this sort of like odd spot where we're waiting for a CPI number and we're waiting for NVIDIA earnings, because I think the AI thing has propelled the market a pretty good amount. But now, like, what's the next catalyst? Because clearly, we're not getting any help from Uncle Sam, right? Congress just passed another massive spending bill, as I recall, for Ukraine, Israel, whatever, Taiwan, almost $100 billion that we don't have. Let's see. I think they gave Microsoft $3 billion to build an AI hub or something somewhere. Like why Microsoft needs $3 billion from the federal government in loan guarantees, I have no idea, but apparently they do. But it's like, so there's no end of government spending. So that's the other part. But then, stocks are doing okay. I think most of the earnings expectations kind of got whittled down somewhat. Some of like the big tech darlings, like ASML or whatever, what was the ARM, right? So ARM sold off. So some of the AI chip stocks that were kind of almost meme-like, kind of coming back to earth a little bit. But, I don't think the economic news overall is bad. It's just, the government is going to pay $1 trillion in interest this year. Eventually, I don't know how sustainable that is, but it'll keep going until it is. So I think you've got, you always have that kind of thing in the background that everybody's been talking about forever, which seems to have finally manifested itself in inflation. But, technology, just the U.S. economy in general works. Like it's only just up to the government to screw it up, basically. And now that's kind of where I think, so the market's kind of stuck in this sort of this odd place in between. But the reality is you've got VIX is around 13. It's very close to the low of the year. Implied volatilities are now running lower than the realized for the last 2 weeks. So all of the vol expectations for the next 2 weeks are super low, even through a CPI number, which means they expect inflation to kind of still be ticking up. That's what all the data is. It's no longer kind of trending down. It's now trending back up. And I don't think the market cares. As long as it's not too bad, I don't think the market cares. And we can keep going higher. And I think that's kind of what it is. So until government spending is a problem, they could always stop, I guess. But we all know that we've been talking about it for years. I don't think any politician is capable of stopping at this point until the market forces them to. And clearly we're not there yet. So, keep an eye, let's see how rates do. If rates start to tick up again, maybe that could cause some concern. But for right now, you've got low volatility, you've got sellers of volatility, and SPX is at 5,200. So I guess everything is hunky-dory, but it does have an eerie flat trading feel right now, I would say.
And when you think of things that are eerie and perhaps flat, I was just out there recently. St. Charles is quite flat, so I can definitely attest to that. Eerie? I don't know. I guess it depends what time of day you go. But Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is catching your eye out there in the markets today?
Well, I actually am going to start off by saying the cliche that you don't want to say. Put your boat in the water in May and float away. I don't know why you don't want to say that.
Yes, boat in the Fox River, I believe, is the cliche.
There you go. So, just was at the boat out in the water, put in a week ago. So very exciting times when the weather gets warm and we get to boat the lovely Fox River. But anyway, we're making a run at the all-time highs again. So we're within roughly less than 2% of the all-time high. We had our pullback. And I think the big thing right now, when you don't have a lot of news, I mean, we have the macro threats, of course, with what's going on with Gaza and Israel, and Ukraine is a constant, and you continue to have those things, of course, but it's the market already knows everything about that, at least for now. And so those are the threats of what news could be, but for the time being, it's really, we've gone from a very big news environment where we have a lot of news over the course of the last few weeks with earnings, with world events, etc., and the Fed announcement to not a lot. And so when we're in this environment, I do agree that it is fairly eerie, but I think what we need to really put our focus on at this point from a stock market standpoint is the numbers that we are approaching in the all-time highs. Now, what is catching my eye today, we do have a nice little bit of an uptick in the shiny stuff in both gold and silver. And so we do have some movement today to look at, if you will. And that's what I'm seeing right now.
And all you sending in your angry hate mail to the Rock Lobster about Uncle Mike's microphone, you can stop sending it. We've sent him microphones. He's just, he's out and about, man about town out there. We'll get him back in his office, and then he'll sound right as rain again. But you could stop pestering the Rock Lobster about Uncle Mike's microphone. As we keep on rolling, go around the horn and see what's cooking out there in the rest of the markets. Is it a banger day out there? Well, you'd probably be forgiven for expecting no. And you would be correct. Not a ton. Well, I take that back. It does kind of depend where you're looking, as it usually does. If you're looking in VIX, you would be forgiven for thinking, or maybe not quite mid-August, but not that far away from it either. 292,000 contracts on the tape out there. The big dog, such as it is today, 17,000 of the June 20s, two O's going up out there. You like those, listeners? I don't have a price on them. Let's pull up a price really quick. They went up for around close to 50 cents. So June 20s, 50 cents. Are you a buyer or a seller at that level, listeners? I don't know. Hit us up. Let us know. Someone putting up nearly 20,000 of them today on a pretty light day. The ADV still threatening 1,917,000, coming in a little bit this week, though. SPY kind of bucking the trend, putting up some numbers, 4.81 million. That's roughly 500,000 more than we would expect this time of day. So SPY delivering on the volume front. The ADV about 8.5 million. Seems like it's on pace to get there. The S, 1.5 million. Now flipping the script, the S a little light. We expect the S now to be around 1.75 million this time of the show. So a little bit light there. So again, it's very much a pick your poison kind of day. What's lighting it up out there? The ADV in the S, 3.17 million. We're a little bit shy of halfway there. Probably can get there. Might be a little light today. We'll see. Small caps, definitely going to be light. Only 446,000 contracts on the tape. That doesn't sound like a lot when the ADV is over 1.4 million. So it's going to take quite a volume lift to get there, it seems. And the Qs coming back almost, not quite at their usual form, but looking a little bit more robust now. 2 million contracts exactly. They're usually around 2.2 this time of show. So they're still on pace to hit their ADV, which has now come in a little bit. North of 4 million seemed like a lot of contracts for the Qs. That has now redressed itself. It's down to about 3.75 million. So it seems like they could probably hit that today. We shall see as we go on out to the single names, listeners. Is it a banger day for single names? Are single names lighting up the tape? The answer is, It starts off low. It kind of ends low as well, actually. So a bit of a weird day out there today. Number 10 cost you 207,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets you to our old friend, the artist formerly known as Facebook. 474 and about a half, up about $1.85 today. So kind of a bit of a rounding error out there for Meta coming in at the number 10 spot. Number 9, they just had earnings. We were talking about them on the show on Monday. This is good old Palantir, listeners. Seems like the market not really loving what they had to say. They were trading around $25 on the Monday show. They're 21 and a quarter today, off about 30 cents today. Obviously, over this past week, they've sold off quite a bit. So I think we saw some of their, I think they took a little bit of a back step on some of their guidance, given maybe some of these contracts they keep talking about not going to materialize perhaps as soon as they hoped. Either way, the market not liking what they heard out there. But number 9 today, 273,000 contracts. Number 8, it's earnings season when this one sneaks onto the top 10. This is Roblox, ticker symbol RBLX. Haven't talked about them in forever. They said player spending has slowed. If you know anything about Roblox, it's pretty much lives off that. So $31, pretty much even, off about $8 or 20% today. So a rough day for Roblox. And good for number 8, 285,000 contracts. So number 7, let's go to the A tech names. Let's kick it off in AMD, 302,000. So all the way up to number 7, we're barely north of 300K. That gets us to AMD, 152.10, off about $1.50, nearly 1% today, and good for number 7 with 302,000 contracts. Number 6, if you like A tech names, you're in luck. We got some for you, including number 6, ARM. ARM fighting its way onto the list today. 311,000 contracts. 103 and 2/3, off nearly $2.50 or about 2.3% today. They've had quite the run. They were as high as about 107. The low was 97 and 3/4. So about $9.25 range on the day out there, trading about 103.70 right now. Good for 311,000 contracts. And the number 6 overall spot. Number 5, you might be thinking, he's going to say Apple. Keep the A tech name trend going. And you'd be wrong. Sneaking in at number 5 is Hood. 477,000 contracts on the tape for them today. They also are having earnings this week. They had a beat, but apparently the market not liking the guidance going forward. Solid Q1 results, all sorts of things you see. They climbed early, now selling off today, off about 70 cents or nearly 4%, trading about 17.15. And they're also, looks like they popped as high as about $19 yesterday, 19.10. And earlier this week on the Monday show, they were trading a little bit north of where they are right now. They were trading about 17.80, 17.90. So they net are down on the week and certainly down a few bucks from those highs they set yesterday. Good for number 5 today, 477,000 contracts. Number 4, listeners, I did a bit of a head fake with you. Now we're back to the A tech names. It's Apple, the fruit company. Just one name separating all these A tech names, listeners. The fruit company has their big iPad deal yesterday. Are you excited? The market seems like they're liking something out there today, up about $1.50, trading 84 and about 1/3. Not quite a full percent out there. So they have reversed their trend since they were down, hanging out in the 160 level. We talked about it before, including on the Monday show, how we thought maybe there was a little bit of a bait and switch going on, saying, pay no attention to those iPhone numbers. Look at this $100 billion worth of stock we're buying. Usually not the long-term bullish sign, like, hey, this company is full of long-term great ideas and new products when they're spending all that money on their stock. But hey, either way, they're buying it up, so the stock is up. And so the bulls are happy out there today. Good for number 4, almost exactly 500,000 contracts on the tape. Again, light day, number 4, we're barely north of 500,000 contracts. If you like A tech names, we got more for you, including number 3. It's the Amazonians, 190 and 3/4, up about 280 or so on the day, 1.5%, putting up 733,000 contracts. So a bit of a banger day out there for Amazon. Amazon obviously lifting the Dow out there today. Number 2, yes, I said number 2, listeners. It's Tesla. Tesla falling to the number 2 spot, 173.25, off about $1.50, not quite a full percent out there. They had a nice run. They had a nice little, almost looked like a little banger turnaround going on since they dipped down to about 142 a few weeks ago. They're fully $30 higher than that now, but they've also retreated about a little over 20, about $21 from the high they set around 194 right after their earnings. So again, like Tesla, they giveth and they taketh away, and today they're on the taketh away mode. Also, not given all the volume, only 966,000 contracts on the tape. That means what is number 1? I think you can guess. It's NVIDIA, also shy of 1 million, 978,000. So it's just a light day, listeners. NVIDIA giving some back today, off nearly 13 handles, almost 1.5%. Back below $900, 891 and about a half out there right now. Good for 978,000 contracts. A decently active earnings week out there this week. We had Disney on Tuesday. Everyone's favorite, Nikola, Rivian. I saw Rivian in the wild again yesterday in Chicago. So they're starting to pop up out there. We also had Uber yesterday. They kind of not exactly blown the doors off out there yesterday as well. Everyone thought they're going to start making money again. They did recently, I think back in February, and then going back to losing money again. Robinhood, of course, as you mentioned already yesterday. AMC also spooking folks out there. Beyond Meat yesterday. Today we got the Blocks. Already talked about them. Warner Brothers and Cedar Fair for all your amusement park vol out there, listeners. Luckily for you, because we like you, we've got some earnings move reports hot off the presses for you. Let's go out to Roblox. They were pricing in 11.8%. They delivered 23.5% as of the time of this report, listener. So Roblox dramatically outperforming there before the bell. We also had today before the bell Papa John's, so Pizza Vol, ticker symbol PZZA. They were pricing in about 5.4%. They're at about $57. And when we ran this report again, they were about 7.5%. So they're outperforming as well, trading a little bit shy of 53 out there. Looks like they've rallied. Now they're down about 5%. So they're pretty much right in line with their straddle right now. Again, a lot of these names for you to go out there and check out for yourselves in the, man, a lot of move results. You know, you're in the height of earnings season, listeners, when the earnings move results are lighting it up out there. Let's go to the folks who make all those super fashionable tumblers out there. YETI. They were after the bell yesterday, 158. I'm excuse me, I have one with you. 30, that would be Airbnb. They're coming up next, but almost $35 is where YETI was trading. They're pricing in 11.4%. They delivered nearly 13%. So a decent day. They're up about 4.25 right now, right around $39. So I guess things are good in the premium tumbler market. Airbnb, is that the case out there as well? They went into their announcement almost $158. They were yesterday after the bell as well. They were pricing in 7.7%. They had delivered 7.2% as of this announcement. And then as of this report, I should say, and they're out about 6.5% right now. So they've given back a little bit of that juice now. So yeah, you could go through this list, listeners. There are a ton out there. Let's go really quickly. We're just talking about them. ARM Holdings, they were yesterday after the bell. They were pricing in 13.3%. They closed right around 106. And they delivered at the time 6.2%. So dramatic underperformance. Now, as we fast forward a little bit, they're only delivering 2.25%. So, wow, if you sold some juice in ARM, you're looking pretty good right now. You had to sweat a little bit. You had to sit there and wait for it to come back for you. But it did. And now you're looking pretty good out there on the short vol front. Let's get out to it yesterday. A couple more, then we'll get out to the reports we've got out there. Bumble, I got a feeling we'll be talking about them maybe in a little bit. Eighth after the bell, 10.25 is what they were trading at the time. They were pricing in 13.6%. They delivered 5.4%, so dramatic underperformance there. As the day has progressed, they've moved a little more. They're up about $1, almost $1.10 now. So now they're close to about 10.5%. So still not what they priced in, but a little bit better. Oh, let's go to TKO as well. Now the parent company of our beloved WWE, which we don't do the wrestling guessing anymore, but it's still fun, as well as UFC. And looks like they were yesterday after the bell. They were at 98.25 when they went into their announcement. They were pricing in 5.6%. They delivered 2.3%. And actually, as of right now, they're delivering only 0.5%, listeners. So, man, not much juice out there. Also turning to the dark side. for TKO out there. Interesting stuff. Oh, one more. I lied. One more. Robinhood. We just talked about them. They were yesterday after the bell. They were at 1785 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 12.3%. They were pricing in a banger, listeners. And right now, they had moved 1.8%, so that was nothing. They moved about 3.5%. Now, still dramatic underperformance. So if you were harvesting some premium going into Robinhood, you're looking pretty good out there as well. Again, we've got pages upon pages of this stuff, your listeners. Go check it out for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. You will be stunned. Some might say overwhelmed with how much data confronts you the second you hit that tab, listeners. It's a lot, but trust me, it's worth it. Season hanging out right now at 114%. So another banger cycle. Man, they are driving some vol out there on the earnings front. As it's time for us to drive some weird paper, it is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's commence operations here in the Odd Block. Let's see what the eye of the Flowmaster has spotted this week. He's kicking things off in a biotech, which you could argue is the reason why this segment was created, listeners, for crazy upside call paper in biotechs. And let's see if we got some of that on our hands today. We're going out to a newcomer. This is CAPR Therapeutics, ticker symbol CAPR, trading about $5.44 right now, up about 7 cents. So kind of an unched day out there today. On the year, they were trading about $4 a year ago, so they're up about $1.40, nearly 35%. A decent day, or I should say a decent year. That said, they've had a lot of fits and starts along the way. They shot up to their high for the year of $7.85. Actually hit 8.25 that day, intraday. That was back on August 22nd. No, actually, no, August 28th. And then since then, they sold off hard right after. So it is living up to the biotech name. Sold off to $2.68 a few weeks later in October. Wow. They loved it, and then they hated it. And then they rallied it again and got back up to, in March, $7.10, right on April Fool's Day. And then they came back, and maybe proving that they were fools, they crushed it again down to $4.82 before rallying it over the past week back up to $5.44. So, Mr. Flowmaster, this one is sure living up to the biotech label. They love it, they hate it, sometimes in the span of a few weeks. What's catching your eye out there today, sir?
Sure. So this one hit my scanner yesterday for just kind of really thin trades. I think this is just a very thin name. Average daily volume is only 180 contracts. The underlying stock itself doesn't even trade 300,000 shares, 375,000 shares a day. So this kind of puts it way down in the bottom rung. And so what we saw yesterday was a buyer of a couple quick orders, but it basically looked like a customer paid 70 cents for almost 700 of the September 7.5 calls when the stock was 530. Okay, so these are almost 50% out of the money calls. They're September, so it's not a super short dated trade, but this is a very clear directional trade. And I kind of have an affinity for biotech stocks because we ran a little quant strategy for a while at Trade Alert in the olden days, and we used directional option cues to put on long and short underlying stock positions. And in the end, we actually didn't really do well as a little hedge fund, but we learned a lot of things. But one thing I learned along the way was that biotechs actually had a pretty good record of informed activity in the options space, and it kind of makes sense because there are some very sophisticated funds out there who follow drug trials, who actually have doctors on staff who know exactly how these trials are created, and different kind of basically you have to have a medical degree in some cases to really understand what a drug is trying to do. So I actually jumped into the stock right after the trade. It is up it's up 15 cents or so. I kind of like it. It is, like I said, it's a very thin name. So if you buy the stock, the options are almost untradeable. They're so wide. But if you buy the stock, you kind of have to be pretty careful about, if you go and try to unload it, it's going to move out of the way on you. So you kind of have to wait for some sort of catalyst. I actually went to the PDUFA calendar, which is the FDA drug trial calendar, looking around to see if this firm had anything in the pipeline, but I couldn't figure it out. And again, that's one of the reasons that like biotechs are kind of an interesting space, because there are some people who really have a good understanding of trials and how they're coming along, and when announcements are due. I actually think the front term vol in this is around 120%. So and it has been lifting up. So it's 160 vol in the May term. So there may be something within a week. I think it's a nice one. I'm holding on to the stock, not a big position, but I kind of trust the flow on this one.
See, just when you think you might slip under the radar of the Flowmaster, he's not just looking at your Apples and your Teslas and Nvidias. Are you a stock that does 180 contracts a day? Even you can't escape the steely gaze of the Flowmaster. 500 lot in CAPR. Yep, he picked that one up as well. I did some digging while you were talking, Mr. Flowmaster. Looks like there's about 1,200 of the June 7/2s open as well. I went and looked at those, and they were not open in one block. They were kind of piecemeal, 100 or so a day, going all the way back to November of last year. They started buying them, it looks like. So someone likes that 7/2 strike in June. And then also, it sounds like, as you're right, picking up a larger block this time for September, but about 1,200 each in June and September. So probably not an accident that those two are lining up similar size. Mr. Rock Lobster, you'd be forgiven if you missed this one. This is kind of a small one, but an intriguing one nonetheless. What do you think about our new favorite biotech, CAPR, sir?
I agree with Henry. Like when you see these calls go up in an obscure stock, and all of a sudden somebody gets excited about them, it does make you scratch your head and go, now why would somebody want to buy some calls in an obscure biotech stock? Let me see. Let me scratch my chin and come up with a reason. So it's the rule of somebody knows something somewhere. It could be a super savvy analyst that, thinks the stock is going up or something like that. Anyway, these on the outset don't look like terrible because they're buying a lot of duration, and normally like this kind of call buying, they go out for the longer duration, maybe to try to catch a trial, something like that. So, I think they have it has a reasonable shot. Maybe somebody trying to front run some news, they're going to do some presenting on some new, gene therapy giga or something like that. But they're not totally outrageously expensive relative to some of the prices we've seen paid for other, biotechs. It's an 80, what is it, an 81 volatility or something like that in the stock. So it's not out of hand, but like Henry says, it's like, when not a lot trades and all of a sudden somebody puts up some size, it does give you pause as to why that is.
It does indeed. If you're wondering what they do, listeners, they develop transformative cell and exosome-based therapeutics. So there you go. It says it all, Mr. Rock Lobster.
Yeah. I like Henry's description. I think, biotech, they buy these calls and it has a really good history of, being correct, whatever that is.
Looks like they are working on a drug for muscular dystrophy, so that's at least one you could sink your teeth into. So intriguing stuff there, Mr. Flowmaster. You've already piqued my curiosity, sir. What else you got in store for us? I hear a rumor that you've been very excited about all things shiny stuff, in particular silver. Is that the case, sir?
Yeah, I got to use a fun comment on a little note I sent out, which was hi-ho silver this morning, because I saw a call buyer, but then when I went digging around a little bit further, I see a lot of silver names. I have a little basket that put the silver names in. And when you look in as Mike mentioned before, the metal itself is up, and that lifts all the miners. And I'm looking at names that, the PAAS, which Plains All American, that one I've been in and out of. That one's up 8%. Most of them are up in the 2 to 8% range. So strong day for it. The one that I noticed early was Silver Core Metals, which is trading 10 times its normal volume, and that was a 23 to 24 cent call buyer. October 5s this morning early, like in the first minute, when the stock was only at 3.5. So 342. That stock's up at 354. So it's only 12 cents, but it's actually a pretty decent percentage return for people that are in there to kind of surf that silver wave.
Surfing that silver wave sounds like a job for Uncle Mike. This guy has been long silver for as long as I've known him. He also likes a good long-term silver collar. The less said about that, the better, though, on these airwaves. Mr. Uncle Mike, what are your thoughts on this bonanza of upside call activity in not just SLV, but a variety of silver names that the Flowmaster has unearthed, sir?
Well, I've been promising people for 10 years that the thief in the night is going to come and take silver up to 40. He hasn't come as of yet, but at some point, the thief in the night is going to come. I really believe that. And silver is just one of those things to where it's not a trending thing by any means. It's just something to where it'll bore you to death for years and years. And then all of a sudden, it goes up 40% one day, it feels like. So perhaps this could be an early sign of the thief in the night coming.
Let's keep on rolling to another name that's lighting up the Flowmaster's tape today. This is Vistra Corp, ticker symbol VST. This is a newcomer to the network. If you're wondering, this is a Fortune 275 integrated retail electricity and power generation company. Fortune 275, not a ranking you hear bandied about too often. Oh, we're a Fortune 275 company. Ticker symbol VST, trading 92 and about a third today, up about 3 1/4. So a nice little pop for them today on the year. Oh man, this one's a banger. Who needs NVIDIA when you've got Vistra Corp? A year ago was trading $24.60. And it had a good year. It had pretty much, not quite double, but got close to it by the beginning of this year. It got up to about $40 beginning of January. So it was looking pretty good from 24 to 40. No one would shake a stick at that. But then it just kicked into high gear this year. Year to date, it's up 143% or $54 1/3. It's just been a banger. Of course, you go all the way back a calendar year, and it's up 275% or nearly $68. So, wow. This one on fire. Mr. Rocklops, I know you like your small nuclear reactors. Look like this one's been the place to be hanging out here. Wow, they have transferred some nuclear plants to these folks. But either way, Mr. Flowmaster, it's been a banger year. I think any call you bought in this name would look pretty good. What did you spot in this one, sir?
Well, so this one, it's actually, you might have had Michael Coe on your show before. He's been in the business for a long time.
It's been a while, but he's been on the network.
Action. And he has a video on YouTube. I think he does a weekly little telecast, but he actually mentioned it, and then I noticed it hit my trade of the day report. It was actually number 1 on trade of the day, and it's funny. I just happened to listen to him last night, and he was pointing out this is basically an AI play, but they're an electricity provider, and they seem to be active in the server farm kind of world. So. It was kind of an indirect play on AI because obviously we know that's been one of the big themes of the year. And I also think they had earnings yesterday, pre-open, but this trade was opened up yesterday and it was an August 100 call buyer for $4, 2,500 times. So it's $1 million premium trade. It is not it's not a little one. I actually intentionally excluded kind of the 10 and 20 cent buyers from the trades I was looking at today. But these things kind of closed at 463 And I think what's the stock doing today? Stock's up another $3 today, and they haven't liquidated them that I can see. So, so this buyer basically was up $159,000 or 15% on $1 million. And it looks like they're still kind of riding it. And it just kind of happened to dovetail with what I just heard from my friend Mike.
There you go. An example of the trade of the day newsletter listeners. They haven't closed these, but they're looking pretty good. Mr. Rock Lobster, has this one been on your radar? VST, sir?
No, but I'm adding it. Anything that has to do with nuclear, AI, energy, data center crap, I'm in.
Yeah, they're hitting all the buzzwords, aren't they? All they're missing is biotech.
I know. I'm, Moss Landing Power Plant, that's California. So anyway, or maybe it's a different Moss Landing. But anyway, I would, I'm definitely, I'm going to add it to the list. No position or anything, but it does have all of the necessary words for the next generation, energy and power generation. Somebody's got to get these data plants powering up. You know what I mean?
Indeed. And before we roll out of here, really quickly, I promised on Monday we'd come back and check in on these VZIO puts we talked about on the Monday show because earnings were this week. They were yesterday. VZIO, ticker symbol VZIO. We talked about on Monday with a stock around $10.50. Someone bought 11,132 of the AUG 10 puts for 35 cents. I said we probably know later this week how those were looking because we would have earnings in a couple of days. And we did. And it looks like the earnings were a bit of a whimper. Not much going on. The stock's down about 19 cents right now, trading 10.36. So at the end of the day, not a heck of a lot. The puts are still open, obviously, because they're August. So they've got some time. So we'll come back to these, see how they work out eventually. But for now, at least, a bit of a whimper on the stock and a bit of a whimper on these puts as we keep on rolling into the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. Let's see what you folks have on the brain, including how you voted on our fun little flash poll from the Monday show. Remember, we were discussing Tim Cook's buying Apple, Warren Buffett's selling Apple. We put it out to you. Which side of that trade would you rather be on, the Buffett or the Tim Cook side? And exactly 2/3 of you came in and said you want to be on the Warren Buffett side. You want to sell yourself some Apple. Only 1/3 of you say you want to be on the Tim Cook side of the trade. So intriguing. Right now, that's not working out, obviously, but near term, that's neither here nor there. Long term is what we're focused on there. And speaking of longer term, at least to the end of this year, the whole 0-day phenomenon was a big topic of conversation at the OIC conference last week. In particular, when are we going to see these contracts that you all want so badly, your 0-day Teslas, Nvidias, and Apples, and all that fun? So we put it out to you. Do you think we'll have listed 0-day options in Tesla, Nvidia, and Apple before the end of the year? Yes, no, or I don't trade 0 DTE. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you. I know what your answer is. You're in the naysayer camp, I do believe, the don't trade camp. But where do you think our audience is lining up? Are they yay or are they nay, sir?
I think the audience is going to be yay. We have an optimistic group of people, so let's be optimistic with it. I hope it happens.
Spoken like the true diehard optimist that he is. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. Well, first off, are you surprised that our audience went the Buffett route to sell Apple? I think you were the one who brought that up on the show on Monday. B, where do you think they're lining up on the whole 0-day Tesla by the end of this year? Yay, nay, or they don't trade it?
Yeah, I thought that too, but Apple's been holding up. It's sold off a little bit, but it's kind of unchanged, maybe up a little bit from the show. I don't think they'll be able to get it done by the end of the year personally, so that would mean no. But I think hope springs eternal, and they're saying yes on the 0 DTE. We're going to see those singles, too much money in it for the exchanges not to do it. That's where I'm going.
Interesting. Mr. Flowmaster, you get the final word on this. What do you think? Well, first off, what is your thought? You think we're going to get 0-day Apple and Tesla stuff before the end of the year? And then B, where do you think our audience is falling, sir?
I do not believe we will see these by the end of this year. My guess is they come out next year. There's definitely, a lot of people that want it, and then there is some resistance and some really thoughtful discussion. A lot of it, which was had at OIC, just about what's important to make sure customers don't have a bad experience. That's kind of the whole point. So I don't think it'll be this year. I think the customers probably do think it'll be this year.
Our audience ever full of surprises this week. It's an exact tie, 37% each for yes and for no. Looks like we had a big groundswell in the last few days of I don't trade 0 DTE going all the way up to 25.9% out there. You got about a day left, so if you're listening on the podcast, get out there, add options, make your voice heard. Yeah, given everything I heard last week and talking to a lot of people, I would have to wager probably on the no camp myself as well. But hey, I've been proven wrong before. Perhaps this will be the time when I am proven wrong again. Maybe the industry can get this stuff working. I actually was surprised at how much interest there is in the cash settle stuff. I thought that was dead and gone, but apparently not. So who knows what we'll see? Maybe we'll see cash settled Tesla and NVIDIA before we get the 0 day. Either way, a lot has to happen before we can trade them in our hot little hands as we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's tell you what we're keeping an eye on until the Monday episode. We'll start in the land of St. Charles. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until the Monday episode?
I want to see if we can make a run at the all-time highs in the S&P, watching that. Continuing to watch bonds. They've been somewhat bullish lately. We've had a little bit of a bid in them lately, but watching that 10-year note at the 4.5% mark, I think that's pretty important.
And Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on through the weekend until the Monday episode?
I guess we can, is there any news? We got an inflation number on Tuesday. Let's see if the market responds to that. We got the lowest implied vol down to like 1-2 weeks that we've had, I think, all year. So I think for whatever reason, and usually it's because people are selling short-term options, that somebody owns a lot of juice and somebody shorted. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see a little squeezy up because that seems to be the way it's going right now, or squeezy down next week. So I think the action will be next week, not necessarily this week. But I think we stick around this 5,200 for a while until we have a reason to move away from it.
And last but not least, Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next Thursday, sir?
Well, I agree that it's important to just be very cognizant of the fact that the implied vols are subdued. There's a couple people that I talked to that sell these daily straddles or daily strangles. And, if you look at it, I think the SPX 0-day straddle this morning was around $16. So that is really the low end of things. Now, as Andrew said, there's not a lot on the calendar. I think tomorrow there's consumer sentiment, and maybe there's, I think that you got to be very careful if you're going to be premium selling with a VIX around 13, even though it does seem to be. I mean, Jesus, the moves we've had have been pretty muted, which it all feeds into itself. But I'll be kind of looking for opportunities to find some long convexity trades, just because I feel like where things are right now, that's the side I like better. And I think we still have a little bit of earnings left on the calendar. Some of the Marathon, I think, is Marathon's after the close today. That's a Bitcoin miner, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a hot one in the crypto space. We've talked about them a few times on our Crypto Rundown show. They've been putting up some numbers lately. The ADV got up to around 400,000 for a while. Their vols into triple digits. So if you're looking for a name that puts up some numbers, vol and volume-wise, the Marathon certainly fitting the bill. Unfortunately, listeners, that music means we've come to the end of another epic sojourn through the world of options. Don't worry, though, if you need a little more in your life. Maybe we talked about the shiny stuff earlier. You want a little bit more of that kind of talk. Well, stay tuned. I'll be back in a little bit with Carly Garner to hold court on all things futures options on This Week in Futures Options. So it should be a fun one. If you're listening live, just stay tuned. If you're listening after the fact, just hit next on your podcast device of choice, and we will be there with bells on. The content flow never ends, listeners. And Mr. Flowmaster, sir, if folks want to check out the never-ending flow of data you have for them, where should they go? What should they do?
You know what? Today, you should head over to the datashop.cboe.com. That's actually where we sell a nice mix of data sets. Most of them are delivered in FTP files after the close. There's one there that I designed. It's called Option Sentiment, which is very manageable size. It's 1 row per underlying, so you're talking about 6,000 rows a day. A lot of aggregations, things like not just call and put volume, but how many calls traded on the offer and how many puts traded on the bid, so that you can read some sentiment into things. And there's volatility and skew information in there as well, since we've been talking about vol and skew being low and flat. So datashop.cboe.com.
I'm looking at it right now, listeners. A lot of cool stuff lurking up here. And some of it, prices may surprise you. So check it out over there, datashop.cboe.com. Just don't search for the Flowmaster. If you search for that, it will not come up. And Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. Where should folks go if they want more Rock Lobster goodness in their lives?
Yeah, 888-TRADE-01. If you want to learn how to trade vol, learn how to trade theta positive, gamma positive, want to learn how dividend capture strategies, all kinds of stuff to help you become a better trader and investor. Heck, I've been doing it for 30 years, and hopefully I'll do it for another 30 years, because what the hell else do I know how to do?
Except woodworking. He might have a second career in woodworking ahead of him, listeners. So
that's the quiet hobby. We're not going to try to make money being a woodworker on YouTube.
Stay tuned.
We're going to let somebody else do that.
Stay tuned for the Woodworking Insider coming to our network. Post haste, listeners. You want to hear all that talk about planing and which lacquer is best for your needs? Stay tuned. Woodworking Insider.
Lacquer.
In the meantime, listeners, head on over to optionpit.com. Maybe you get some good woodworking tips there as well. And last but not least, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, maybe you have some woodworking tips up your sleeve. And also, if folks want more in their lives, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. Check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you're looking for a financial advisor. And continue to follow me on Twitter, because there will be some exciting announcements coming out in the days and weeks to come.
There you go. Exciting announcements from Uncle Mike. Give him a follow at Mike Tosaw. Tosaw is the place to go to find all of that. That's going to do it for us on the old OB today. Back again in a little bit for Twifo. Back again tomorrow, noon central, for Volatility Views. I already recorded a special bonus international volatility review for you with some folks out of Australia. Kind of interesting vol perspective on domestic vol, V-stocks, all kinds of fun. So that'll be hitting on the Volatility Views show tomorrow, as well as, of course, after that for our pro folks coming back for a little bit of options oddities. You can learn more about that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Then we're all back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com optionsinsider.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.